The government wants to start hiring disqualified people. Let's imagine that you're getting ready for the military, you're excited, you're training, and then all of a sudden during a medical exam, it's found out that you have asthma. You're disqualified. But what if it doesn't end there? The Department of Defense right now is exploring the option of maybe extending you a job. Instead of working in the uniformed service like the Army or the Navy, you can work as a civilian. This is in the middle of a hiring freeze. Why are we doing this? Let's get into it. Every year, tens of thousands of young Americans try to join the military, but they get turned away. And it's not for a lack of motivation or a lack of toughness. It's usually because of a medical reason. Now, the government invests a lot of money in their trainees. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in training. Why should all that be gone? Why should all that disappear? Here's a real example. 19-year-old Sarah dreamed of being an Air Force pilot. She aced the aptitude test, but during training, her doctors discovered she had mild asthma. Sorry, Sarah, you're out. No backup plan, no here's another way to serve. That's the problem that a group of bipartisan lawmakers, they want to fix. And the shocker here is this is bipartisan. You got a Republican and a Democrat, and they both agree on this? Nobody's agreeing on anything right now except for this. And this is a pretty big deal. If you look at the federal workforce, 36% of them work in the DoD. So a third of all federal employees work for the Department of Defense. This is in cybersecurity, logistics, or disaster preparedness, among other things. So this is being seen as a win-win. DoD keeps skilled people, and that person can still serve the country. This is called the Defense Workforce Integration Act. It's a three-prong approach. The first prong isn't much of anything. This basically mandates that when you're talking to a recruiter, when you're trying to enlist in the military, they hand you something like a brochure. Awareness. It's like an awareness campaign. They're like, hey, did you know? Basically, did you know we have positions for civilians as well? So that's the first one. The second one's a little bit better, is for recruits that actually make it to training, but they get disqualified for a medical reason. Now, this one is a connection. So they're connecting you with hiring authorities. And this has never been done before. This could give you an inside path to eventually getting an interview, meeting a hiring manager or a human resource specialist that can kind of get the wheels greased, get the hiring process moving for you. This could really give someone the edge. The third prong would be for service members leaving with an honorable discharge. This would see transition programs expanded to include more of the knowledge and information that you would need in order to make a decision. It would also introduce you to different areas within the DoD that might be matched up and aligned with your skill set. So this is not to be confused with veteran preference because that's still a thing. You still have VEOA, you still have VRA. This is in addition to that. The Air Force is already doing something similar with its DRIVE program. It helps medically disqualified airmen to land a DoD job. They want to expand this out to include the Army and Navy as well. But the really strange thing about all of this is the timing. You know as well as I know there's a hiring freeze right now. There's a pretty severe hiring freeze lasting all the way to July 15th. Even after that, we could witness some cuts taking place. So what are we doing? Unrolling this thing, proposing this thing during a time like this. We see DoD planning to slash their civilian workforce by 8%. That's tens of thousands of jobs as a part of cost-cutting measures. Why? It's because the Pentagon's tightening the belt. That's what Pete Hegseth says. That's what President Trump says. They're tightening the belt because the money isn't there. And at the same time of tightening the belt, of cutting tens of thousands of jobs, we're trying to encourage people to come into the DoD. We're trying to create positions that are being cut. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And here's another thing that's really confusing. Here's another paradox for you. President Trump proposed an increase in spending for the Department of Defense. $1 trillion. This is the first time DoD has ever hit the $1 trillion mark when it comes to their spending proposal. Where's that money going to? Well, here's the interesting thing. DoD is moving around a lot of money. Billions of dollars, actually. They're taking away money for training, money for repairs, and they're putting it in a different area. They're putting it towards the border. They're reinforcing what they have going on the border there. They're trying to strengthenize it. They're trying to militarize it. Let's look at what that means line for line. We have the Army cutting over $300 million from the budget meant to relocate military families. They're also taking $1 billion from the Repair and Renovate Fund. So the money that they use to improve training facilities or barracks, that they're not going to see any repairs anytime soon. When I was coming through the military, when I joined the Army in 1999, they had us stay in what they call World War II barracks. These are buildings that were built in the early 1940s. Sometimes it was the late 1930s. These were very old buildings. They had us crammed in there while we're doing our basic training. So buildings like that, they're not going to see any type of renovation anytime soon. The Navy is diverting money away from sailors' special pay. The Marine Corps is tapping into its training and education budgets, even JROTC. The Air Force is slashing its facility repair by over $140 million, and even Space Force is in on it, pulling $100,000 from personnel accounts. The money is going to fund an expanded military presence at our southern border, and the troops are patrolling a new national defense area. This is where they can detain migrants. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said, "Think about the border similar to a military installation. If you trespass, you will be charged." That's a massive shift to the way that we currently view immigration, public policy, the military. We have over 2,000 troops there right now. Why is this happening? Why is the president taking this deliberate action in order to change the border into more of a militarized zone? Well, politics, the border remains a top campaign issue. Ideology, Trump's desire to use military force in domestic matters. Budget games, rather than asking Congress for money, they're shifting internal funds. Control. The more the military is involved in immigration, the more power the executive branch can exercise. Now let's talk about another hot issue when it comes to DoD's workforce plans. The Pentagon has ordered to get rid of over 1,000 transgender troops. Issued in May, this policy, backed by a Supreme Court ruling, enforces a ban on transgender individuals in the military. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said, "No more pronouns, no more dudes and dresses." The memo gives transgender troops 30 days. You got 30 days to self-identify. Once you self-identify, you're going to go through the process of getting discharged. It's going to be for gender dysphoria. So I imagine that these military discharges, they should be honorable under a medical condition or something like that. But we could see some cases where you see general discharges, but I really feel like most of them are going to be honorable. As of December 2024, we had over 4,000 troops diagnosed with gender dysphoria out of 2 million total service members. About 1,000 have already self-identified, and the rest should probably see a discharge date between June, July, or August, something like that. In addition to that, we now have an update when it comes to the RIF lawsuit. So a judge ordered a pause on the humongous layoffs that we were going to see during the summer months. It was the RIFs, the reduction in forces. So basically the judge now, they want to see the plans. They want to see the RIF. Open up the files and show us the plans. They don't want to do this. The White House pushed back. If you want to know more about that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.